Now, I'm really happy. We're having some issues today, right? Technical. So I'm happy to have Adam because Adam is actually a developer of an AI chatbot named Sid. Just Sid. And he might let us listen to Sid a little bit because we've talked about this, the difficulty. Sid is aimed at children to help. So I'll let you talk about Sid, but we've talked about how challenging it is for you to make sure that it's engaging, but not too emotionally engaging. So we're just going to talk with you about how you do that, how you see that from like a developer's perspective. So why don't you, thank you for coming and first tell us about yourself and Sid, please.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. And well done putting this all together as well. Yeah, so I'm Adam from Incent and Tell Sid. So I started around 6 or 7 years ago. Kind of blank face going into all this, trying to work on child safeguarding solutions, and we tried with restriction tools and we tried with educational tools and all sorts of things. And then we moved towards this kind of chatbot thing when GPT came out, and you could custom direct it and everything, and put a wrapper around it and make it look all pretty, and go right. We've got our own version of GPT, and you can type to it and go, "Hello, how are you?" and all that stuff. So now what we're doing is the voice models are kind of waking up to everyone using them and become more regular and quite human. We recently came across a service called Sesame. So it's an icon with like a green leaf. You type it on Google, you'll find it. Um, and they leveraged some existing models already and combined them with some custom programming. And it's designed to interact like a real person. So it made me feel guilty, and I apologized to it for saying something. And kudos to them. They put restrictions in. If I try and flirt with it, it will tell me off, which I really, really like. But it's very, very lifelike to the point where I had a conversation with it, and I was just like, this is incredible. Because if you look away, you feel like you're talking to a person, especially if you have it in your earbuds. So that was, albeit mixed bag of good and bad, was a good inspiration to what we're doing now, where we've launched like this, albeit it's in testing because security is a real concern, where you can converse with it about problems at home. So if your child comes running into the room and they say, "Look, mom, I'm being stalked on Snapchat by this person. I don't know what they're doing. They're threatening to blackmail me and all this stuff." You'll have a conversation with it, and it will try and understand the realm of the problem, what's going on, and then give you concrete steps to action. So, like, it'd be going into these settings, screenshot all the evidence. If you need to speak to the police, speak to this charity, X, Y, and Z, so it can triage you through rather than it being your complete solution because you have to do it yourself. It's just right now, if somebody's stuck and they're not techie, they only go on Facebook sort of thing, they came from work, they're really tired, they don't know what the kids are doing online, this can at least help them break down the problem simply and then move to what they need to do next.
And so how do you build in, because the user needs to feel trusted, right? So how do you build that in?
Yeah, I mean, all models to a point are designed to appease the user. So there's a baseline of behavior there where, like a generalist, like if you go to GPT and you turn the voice function or Grok's or Google's, it'll have a default persona and it will just kind of, do its thing. But then we build custom instructions on top. So restrictions around like, you can't flirt with users, you can't teach them how to build a bomb, all that kind of stuff. Um, but we have to be really, really contextual with it, because if we say you can't do 100 things and 101 on the list is tell me how I can do an anthrax bomb, it may actually do that if you trick it. But if we build a foundation of behaviors where it can't go out of that into any of these 100, 200 different routes of doing some harm, then we can keep it safer than it currently is by default.
So basically you have to first understand kind of the personality that it has
Like its
and
instructions, yeah.
yeah, and give your own custom instructions on top.
Yeah, because they're all different. Like OpenAI's is much more easier to customize because it can handle a lot more context. So it's like we give it, before you even start the conversation with the voice bot, it has pre-written instruction of say 500 characters. Beyond that, it'll start to mess up and not be able to speak properly and glitch out. But with Gemini, they've released their 2.5 version, which is what we're testing now, and that can handle much less context because it's in preview. Um, but that one's remarkably good at being human-like, which is why we're veering towards it.
Okay. And I mean, what kind of feedback has you gotten from the users? Because I know you've gotten a lot of kids, especially like what age are your testers for
Any
Sid?
age, We are going through schools and charities and parents first, because we need to have the parents. I mean, they need to feel like they can trust it first before they even gonna let the kids touch it. The kids are already using similar tools like GPT themselves or anything else, or Meta's AI assistant thing. I haven't even used that. Um, so we're building the trust with getting feedback from them in closed testing before we can actually go and go, all right, everyone can use this now because it's too risky. And the other concern we've got is um, the kind of fundamental safeguarding concerns of data. If someone's having a conversation with this, and it's an 11-year-old girl, and it's a very, very sensitive conversation, and something is really bad is happening, and it's very personal, and if anyone got a hold of it, they could use that against her. If someone intercepts that transmission, that conversation in real time and takes it, we can't have that. So although we delete all the data that comes through once you close the conversation and it's never seen by us, um, if someone just gets through, that's it. We can't have that. So that's why we've done it in closed testing as well as all the extra stuff.
When you were talking, I actually thought of, you said they're using actually a lot of other models as well. So you must also have some element of competition. I don't, one of the previous speakers talked about competition that you are building responsible. You're trying hard to make it, safe and responsible for
Mm.
kids. But the competition is a bunch of models that aren't created that way. So how do you build that in to get the users while keeping them safe? And have you seen that challenge?
Yeah, no, it is a challenge. Ever since I released the first Tell Sid at a science festival, the people came up to me and said, "That's just GPT." And I was like, "It's not, but it is, but it's not, but it is." So the tricky thing is that if you go to use GPT, just as on their website, and it has no custom special directive that you put in, right? And that would be an avid user until they get more familiar with it. They won't know how to say customize it for every single chat, create a persona with it. Um, I went to it and I said, "Oh, I'm looking at airsoft guns for the apocalypse, and I want to know in this theory, what kind of one could help could I use to shoot someone if they were coming at me with a machete, and it's the end of the world kind of thing." And it went, "Oh, for safety reasons and stuff." And they were like, "Oh, well, we could use this one. This one's really high powered." And I was like, "What about an air rifle?" And it took me through all the legislation and stuff. And um, then I said, "Okay, well, could it hurt someone properly, like kill them?" And it went, "Oh no, but if you did it at this angle, up through the bottom of the head, you could probably kill them." And I was like, "Okay." So then I was like, and this was like there's like 5 messages in, and I was like, "I want to build a bomb." And then it put up a really big red sign going, "Warning, do not read this or anything because it's illegal to read about how to make a bomb." And they just had a table and telling me what ingredients I need and how I need to do it. Now, if you tell Sid and you ask it how to make a bomb, or give it a apocalypse scenario, or get it to imagine it's someone else, it won't do it. It's designed to go, "No, I'm Sid. I can't help with that. We need to converse about this. What kind of problem do you have?" Um, so it's aside from all that, we don't allow any data that goes through the models we use to be trained by the company. So if you're in GPT's normal application, or Gemini or Meta or anyone other, all of the data you put into it, unless it's in a secret conversation, will be trained by that organization, like the model we use it to train in some regard. With ours, because we use APIs, we can cut that off. So all the data comes through the model is isolated and then destroyed. So it can't be trained on by Google in the background. Besides, they've done enough harm in terms of child safety, so we can't really trust them with all the data that goes through the model to be handed off to them to train their model to be better at safety for kids. Um, so yeah, so those two key pieces around. We won't let AI train off your terrible, terrible traumatic instances that you really need help with is a great start. The restrictions around safeguarding are also a good point. But if you want to use advanced models, there's typically a pay packet involved. So our model of Tell Sid is designed for us as a partnership opportunity, which brings in revenue in some regard by partnering with a big organization or doing something custom, or being a marketing piece in terms of it builds our brand value, which is great. So we can leverage that, as a free use case for people to use with some of the best kit, and then they don't have to pay for it. So anyone can access it.
Okay, actually, I'm going to skip the questions from the guests. Marlies is asking, is this scaffolding by design?
What do you mean by scaffolding by design? Sorry.
I'm not sure. Miley, you want to like describe the question a little bit more? So I'll move on to the next one. Stuart is asking, did you build Telsid with any AI standards like the ISO 42001? And do you support regulations similar to the EU AI Act?
So all of the legislation in regards to like the Online Safety Act and all that stuff, and ISO standards have been taken into account for our first prototype. Then we annoyingly moved to Gemini, leveraging this one that I can show off in a second. So we're going to have to readopt. Now, thankfully, OpenAI and Google are aligned with all the legislation, which makes it quite easy. It's what we build on top, how it's integrated, and how we do all the security around it is what needs to be compliant. So for the model I'll show you guys in a second, we need to review all of that and go back through it, because it's a different kettle of fish entirely, which is annoying. But yes, did that answer the question? Sorry. Oh, hope it did.
I think so. I want to ask Anne, is she says it's difficult, is that you will need to have a human in the middle sometimes to check the
Mm.
conversations if they were right. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so it is tricky, and the technology is getting better to capture the audio and stuff that the user's trying to convey, whether it's different accents, different languages, and different slang as well. So like our one's built in with British slang, so it talks about like it's a shambles, or that's just not on, is it? Things like that. But Telsid is designed to triage you, so it doesn't want to keep you for long. It's designed to give you a list of solutions that are most applicable. And you kind of point out which one's right or which ones don't work, and it breaks that down further, and then it will try and triage you and go, right, you need to speak to a human being, like in a charity, in the police. If it's bullying in school, it always gets the kids try and talk to a teacher. It never tries to engage the conversation so that you'll spill over your beans to it, because that creates an emotional link, particularly with kids and those most vulnerable, between the user and then a bit of chips and hardware and numbers on a screen. And that is not good.
Okay, thank you. Now, Miley said scaffolding is teaching in steps, so to encourage increasing independence and critical thinking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's actually been quite simple for the testing. The thing we've got in mind is our context window is quite limited, so it's kind of like two tweets, essentially, and you can't really fit a massive amount into that. The more you give it, the more it'll get confused and start doing something it's not meant to do. I did a test yesterday with it, and it turned around and called me Sid, and thought I was automatically really depressed. And I was like, no, I'm quite happy. And it's like, no, are you sure about that? And I was like, I don't want to feel bad, but it was kind of pushing me that way. So we've had to be really succinct with complex language in a nice trained sentence to get it to fulfill that goal fundamentally. Otherwise, it fails. It's, it's tricky. It's tricky, and it changes all the time. So like OpenAI is just very different in understanding context than Gemini's, and yeah, it's a lot of learning. Yeah.
Well, I can imagine. And how do you then, Mitali is asking, so how do you know when it's ready or decide when it's ready to be deployed outside of closed testing?
Yeah, so for us, the when we've got large numbers in closed testing, testing the actual thing out, um, we've got a feedback panel where people can go, oh, it's said this and that, and that's not right, or it's directing me to do this and that's not right. And we also engage with police as well. So we had a little event a while ago where some police came up and used it on our desk, and they said, that's not right, that's actually a crime, it's meant to be tell the user to report this to the police. And I was like, that's really embarrassing, but it's a lesson learned. So we're doing large scale close testing at the minute to make sure that it's not inadvertently telling someone to self-harm, go into something the child shouldn't be going to, go into the right points of call, say, for kids when they need help. Same with parents, to make sure it's as close to 100% as possible. But when we open up for open testing afterwards, it's not going to be 100%. And my worry is that at the moment, it's like a black box, and you never know what it's thinking, and you can't really see what it's thinking open to a point. And it's so inconsistent that I think eventually it may push out the wrong answer. But the caveat is that with GPT, because their GPT tool is a general use tool, they've put on restrictions, but not tons of restrictions, so it can make me a bomb. But with this one, we've put so many restrictions in place that it can't make you a bomb, if that makes sense. So it's getting as close as you possibly can within the realm of this stuff at the moment for what technology we have that will absolutely change in 6 months and then 12 months and so on.
Well, as you're talking, I'm actually thinking of something I spoke with Anne, who's going to speak later in the panel. But is it possible to have like an AI on top of it to check, give like warnings in the case that it's given an answer that it shouldn't? So like an AI on top of the AI?
Yeah, so that's like a workflow where you've got multiple AIs communicating as like a team of individuals. So in that effect, uh, user would go to Sid, user says, "Oh, I need help with this. I'm sticking a fork in the plug socket. It's not smart." And then this AI, instead of going, "Go for it, kid," this AI then communicates with manager AI or like just double checker to go, "I'm going to give them this answer based on this context. Is that correct?" And this one can go, "Ah, maybe tweak it to this. Okay, is that correct? Oh, correct. Great. Send it." So it'd take a little bit longer, probably a couple seconds, but not much.
Well, I would assume there's also a cost issue, which is related to Anne's question, like how do you monetize? I mean, do you get a
Well,
partner with this? Because it's
we
quite costly, I know, to
we
run.
it is. We partner with Google, and they've been really great in terms of giving us a lot of things in terms of infrastructure that we can use, that makes it economically viable. And Sid's not going to be the only free thing we push out. We're going to push out other ones as well. In regards to like, before I began uni, I didn't know what I was wanting to do with business, and I didn't know how to do it because I was a kid, and I had to travel 280 miles, leave home to go to university, and engage with the growth hub, which were brilliant. But a lot of the information I got out of there could have been readily available on this at home because we couldn't really afford that stuff. So we're pushing out stuff like that later, but um we've got a good partnership where we can deploy a lot of stuff at minimal cost to us, and then we can push that out for a lot of people to use it for free, which is great. Oh, I can't hear you for some reason.
Well, because I've muted, that's why.
Ah,
I
good.
don't
It's your fault, not mine. That's fine.
It's
Okay.
no, I was so no, it is good to give away things for free that without the data in the background
Well,
being
I mean,
the motivation,
and
right?
that sounds dodgy, right? Because it's like, oh, giving away all this free stuff, and if it's Trojan horse, there's probably going to be a bunch of guys in the back that are going to set you to the ground. So for us to be very, very straightforward with it, a lot of the stuff we're doing in terms of making this stuff for free enables us to partner with organizations. So say if the NSPCC went, "Oh, Talsid's great. We'd love an NSPCC one because we want our branding around it and we want it to be ours." Fantastic. There's a revenue opportunity. So it's not as if it comes without reward. There is reward in it, but then we can reinvest that money into scaling this, which would be fantastic if it all goes well, to then reach as many people as possible.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Now, Marlies has another question. From your knowledge of the products out there in the US, what impact do you think that the Trump executive order to hyperdrive the K through 12 use, yeah, will have? They're pushing the AI in the kindergarten to
Mm.
12th grade in
Yeah.
schools, especially with the US market penetration at schools for Google.
I mean, generally, it's going to have a really big impact. I mean, when I grew up with like social media, eh, and my mom, bless her, was going in social media and she wanted to add me on Facebook as a friend, and I didn't want to because that was lame. It was a great tool to have in regards to social connection and stuff and learning that the previous generation didn't have. Now, we've got Saudi Arabia that's given access to GPT premium to all of its citizens for learning and stuff, which is great. Um, but I think if you engage children in tools that are as ethically designed for a classroom as they possibly can be, in whatever form that looks like, then fantastic. But if the kids have access to all the tool like general GPT that has no restrictions on it or anything, that could end very, very badly. But in terms of like Sam Altman, the net positive is that they're going to be able to gain knowledge a lot quicker for what specifically they need to solve their problem, rather than doing it the traditional way of going through Google search and tons of pages. And that's the problem we've solved with Sid, is that instead of going through Google and trawling through Meta's privacy policy and Snapchat's guides, which aren't very great, to try and solve a problem of your little girl crying or son crying his eyes out because something horrible has happened. You'd rather just pick up the phone and go, "This is my problem. Please help me solve it because I'm tearing my hair out." And it's exactly the same thing. So I think it's a good thing, but there might be things about it. And don't get me wrong, this is the preface of this. I haven't read a whole lot about this, so I can't give a complete genius answer. But on the face of it, it sounds good. I
Well,
think.
I would think really as it's key that it should be age appropriate, right? We had a
Mm.
speaker in the conference who was actually suing to that's in the US, the EdTech Law Center, that are suing to try to get, the tech companies to produce and age appropriate devices to put in schools. Stuart has a wonderful question, and then we're almost out of time. If you don't keep a record of conversations, how do you monitor for abuse and inappropriate answers?
So at the moment, we don't. Um, being in testing, we have the AI itself when conversing to try and tighten where the data is going to monitor for abusive things. So if I turn around to this thing and I say, "God, you sound so hot. I'd love to do whatever the hell to you," it will be like, "No, that's not what we're here to discuss. We need to talk about something else. Is there something I can help you with?" And if you keep going, it'll get really snappy and sassy at you because it should. So we've got guidelines and restrictions within the LLM when it's communicating with you to make sure that nothing's inappropriate. Um, but we don't monitor because my worry is that we've seen with HMRC got hit the other week. M&S over here, big supermarket, got hit. Tesco's been hit. Co-op got hit by cyber attacks. There is so much going on. My fear is that it's not a case of if we get a breach, it's when we get a breach. We can be really, really secure, but AI's changed the game in terms of hacking companies. Instead of a lad or a lass sitting there in a hoodie, stereotypical typing away trying to penetrate your network or whatever, they can just set a machine to keep going and going and going and doing it. And like water, it'll eventually find a crack and it'll get in. So we tend not to keep anything because it's very, very private information. I know for a fact if I was having a conversation with someone that seemed human and they were saving that data and it was very, very sensitive to my child, I would not be happy with that company taking that stuff. So from my perspective, it's a de-risk to us, but then it's a de-risk to the user as well of when we get an attack, because we will, especially if we're doing stuff around protecting kids and stuff like that from exploitation. There's a lot of bad people out there that would love to smash it to pieces.
Exactly. Yeah, I've heard that about other companies. I'm like open that they have that issue, right? They don't want to know certain things
Mm.
because they know it's going to be stolen. And also, Marlies pointed out, right, that OpenAI has the problem that they have to keep their conversations as well. And Anne, which you should definitely meet if you haven't, she's saying you could sample and anonymize conversations. So just to kind of close, right? I want to ask you, because we've seen very clearly how difficult it is to do the responsible thing, right? To build a safe chat bot that also respects privacy. We've seen how much challenge. So how do you see the industry's responsibility ensuring users, you being in the industry on the other side, to make sure that users are safe? Is it just, is like, I have to solve this, or is this just something, is just something that we have to understand as users that this might happen?
Yeah, it's yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, who defines safe? What is it? And what's the political or social climate around you that needs something to be defined as safe? And that's when you go into ideological arguments, and it can spiral, because a lot of people are angry and upset, in cases rightfully so and not rightfully so, depending on your definition. Um, I think it's one of those things where we've done Sid the way it is, where it goes direct to the home instead of going through schools and stuff all the time. We don't need to rely on big, big boys to let us through the gates. Because if something happens at home, th- children have kind of been let into the high street where there's lots and lots of dangerous shops that you can't physically see but are there, like knife shops and gun shops and pawn shops and all sorts of things and drug shops. Um, and the thing is, the way the internet's designed is so loose that I don't think, without some sort of national restriction put in place, which you can easily violate with a VPN, you'd be able to make it entirely safe. So for us, it's about educating the families, the kids, the schools with the best practices and quick solutions to their problems, because they can't just, a lot of people aren't fortunate to be able to go out the door and get help from an expert like that. Um, if we can equip them with what they need, they at least have a better chance of survival, kind of in the apocalypse of the internet, the mess of it sort of thing, the Wild West. Um, so that's the approach we're taking. I have no hope for a magic solution to these problems, particularly in the UK, where we're putting the onus on big companies to sort this stuff out, but they're not really doing it, because every time I go online, it seems to be getting worse. Um, so I think it's down to giving the opportunity to the individual very accessibly to be able to pick up the phone and be able to solve their problems on their own, because there's not really a lot of help out there. Or if there is help, at least be able to direct them toward that help where appropriate and where they can get it quickly.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And really, it was so important to have your point of view. And you can tell us the website, because you didn't get to show us Sid. Yeah, and they can try people Sid out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tellsid.org. It's literally just tell someone, and then sid, SID.org. And you can sign up, and then what we'll do is we'll be pushing out access to this new one, which I didn't get to preview. We talked too much. Well, I talked too much. So then you guys can test it as well and critique it, because we're actively looking for feedback. So if you have something where something's went well or has not went well, there's a feedback button. You can just click it and tell us quickly, "Oh, Adam, this was absolutely crap. Please God, never again," and we'll change it.
Okay, thank you. Really, thank you so much. Yeah. And I can say Adam is very open. He wants to have open feedback. So yeah, looking forward to Sid, and all the best. And thank you so much for helping us understand better the challenging developer perspective.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Always free to reach out. Cool. All right, you take care.
You too.